Hey folks, here's your thorium couple minutes here. This is going to be a longer one than usual, but there's a fellow that I appreciate very much called Robert Hayes, but he said some stuff about thorium that I wish he'd call first, and we could discuss things, and maybe he'd still have some ideas about thorium that I don't agree with, but at least, he would have tried to talk to somebody who's devoted a good chunk of their life to understanding this material. I'm going to do a little bit of myth busting here on his reportage.
The arguments that they use to argue we need to do thorium instead of uranium is a myth. Unless it's that one point that thorium is more abundant than uranium. That's true. Thorium is more abundant than uranium.
First, this subject that just went by, thorium isn't just more abundant than uranium. Uranium-235 is what makes uranium a fuel. And thorium is usable as is. There's no enrichment needed for thorium. And so there's not 4 times or 3 times or 7 times more thorium on planet Earth. There's 2,000 times more thorium usable as fuel than uranium-235. Let's go on.
That it's safer and it has less waste. Wow. So the truth is that the only real viable reactor technology for thorium is a molten salt reactor. And a molten salt reactor does not need thorium at all. You can do it with thorium, but you can do it with uranium. Anything you can do with thorium, you can do with uranium. So all of that just goes out the window. Right now, we have an infrastructure for creating a lot of uranium. We don't have the same infrastructure to create a lot of thorium. We could build that. It's not that difficult to do. We could certainly do that.
I should say here that if the Thorium Products Corporation can finally get its thorium license, we will have a supply chain. We could go into all sorts of theories and ideas as to why industry has not used thorium, but we can talk about that in some other video some other day. Thorium is in fact safer. Not 100% safe. Nothing's 100% safe. Hydroelectric dams have killed thousands of times more people than all the nuclear bombs and reactors in the world. So nothing's safe. But when it comes to safe power, the ingredients for that safe power, uranium, you mine it, you get it out of the ground, maybe you extract it through an in situ water system. That's great. I support all that, of course. I'm a big nuclear supporter. But thorium, you get it for free when you process rare earths, which is something we desperately need to do in this country. And so if we could just get back to proving, rare earth mine to metals to magnets, you'd have a whole lot of thorium and you'd get your uranium out of the deal too. So thorium has that going for it. If you're going to be digging things out of the ground, you might as well get all the bites of the apple, and that's one of the best reasons for using thorium.
The salt plug, they like to say that the salt plug means that it's meltdown proof. Well, it doesn't make it meltdown proof at all. What it means is that the likelihood of a catastrophic failure is lowered.
He could have saved his breath with the salt plug. There isn't any advanced reactor out there today that even is remotely thinking about using a salt plug. We got to talk to Dick Engel and the last of the MSRE operators, and they said the salt plug was sucked. It was a clever idea that was executed poorly. You had to keep it hot. It would freeze. You'd get clogs. Nobody's using a salt plug. What we do when we're designing a modern advanced reactor is we make sure that the vessels and the containment vessels and everything else can handle any sort of excursion or catastrophic, in the astoundingly beyond design basis incident where a vessel would rupture, the catch basin and containment vessels would contain that, because you're not going to have 3-4 layers of broken vessels. You might maybe get one, but the salt plug is not in anybody's design that I know of, and I keep pretty good track.
You could argue that it's impossible, but it's not impossible. You put too much fuel into one of those and you can get an excursion. You can get it to go prompt critical if you put too much fuel into any reactor.
We've modeled putting a year's worth of thorium uranium fuel into a molten salt reactor all at once, which would fit anybody's definition of a condition where prompt critical could happen. And you know what you get? You get a big surge in energy. Things get really hot and really weird, and because they get hot and weird, the molecules separate and move apart, and then it cools. And when it cools, it gets hot and weird again, and then it cools. And then it gets hot and weird again, and it coasts down. It's a bouncing ball that eventually freezes. All by itself. That's called a dead man switch. You could run away screaming. You could have the zombie apocalypse like we used to say. But that is part of the safety case. Bob, are you listening? There's a lot of legit reasons why thorium is much safer and better to use.
To say that it's meltdown proof is taking it too far. You can say that the likelihood is arbitrarily small, and that would be correct. But to say it's impossible, it's not impossible. It is definitely possible.
Let me point something out, that the M in molten salt reactor stands for molten. So they're already melted down. I think people inartfully say they can't melt down because they're already melted down. What they could say is that you can accidentally freeze them, which is part of the safety case for why molten salt reactors are so good. And with the thorium uranium fuel mix, because you still use uranium with molten salt reactors, because why? Because thorium is fertile and not fissile, which is another safety case for why you could have a million pounds of thorium sitting in a room and nothing's going to happen. You have that much natural uranium sitting in a room and things are going to get weird really quick.
So to say that it's more non-proliferation resistant, no. It's got to have the same proliferation controls you would have with the uranium cycle in a molten salt reactor. And so there's a lot of hype.
So I would rather handle thorium any day. I'd rather walk around with thorium in my pockets than a bunch of plutonium in my pockets, even though they're both alpha emitters and could be shielded by a Kleenex. But, we're trying to keep these videos short. I want to point out that not only is thorium more abundant and, aside from the supply chain lacking, as Robert points out, thorium is in fact safer because it's an alpha emitter.
And then there's the argument that you cannot make nuclear weapons with thorium. That's another common one.
This is the biggest lie against the nature of thorium that other people tell. And what I want to ask is if there's a way to make a bomb from thorium, which is 3 times more abundant, 4 times, 2,000 times more abundant, so easy to get plutonium out of it, 99.9 pure. Oh, it's so easy. Then show me the bombs. We have Brazil, Iran, North Korea, United States, Russia, China, Israel. You name a nuclear state that has gone to huge, enormous lengths to get uranium. And none of them use thorium, even though Brazil has all the thorium in the world. India, their beaches are covered with monazite. Massive amounts of thorium. Iran, China. There is no country that I mentioned that doesn't have vast reserves of easily accessible thorium that no one would be looking for. The IAEA, U.S. Nuclear, nobody would be searching for somebody combing the beach for some monazite. So why haven't they done it? In 1935, we made 2 U-233 bombs, and they were such unbelievable nightmares. They blew one up, it sucked, and they destroyed the other one. And the life lesson from that is, don't make a bomb from thorium. It's hell on earth. It would cost hundreds of billions of dollars in infrastructure. It would be astoundingly obvious to all your neighbors and the world what you are doing. And so that is why, of all the materials, thorium has never been made into a bomb of any sort. Dirty, clean, nuclear, whatever. Thorium cannot realistically be made into a bomb. Sure, there's smarty pants that can write on a chalkboard a formula for, doing it. Oh, we could extract, we could do vacuum distillation and do all this insane, bananas, unproven stuff that would cost a fortune and become super obvious to the neighbors. Oh yeah, That's going to happen. It's not going to happen. You know why? You know why I'm so confident? Because it hasn't happened in 70 years. Even though Pakistan and Iran and North Korea and India and Brazil, all these bad actors have tons and tons of thorium. Where'd they go? They went to Russia. They went all over the place looking for plutonium and uranium. Why did they do that? Because you can't make a bomb from thorium. Stop saying it. It makes you look bad. And this is one reason why people have trouble accepting nuclear of any type as a solution for our vast energy needs. So, you're peeing in a common pool when you talk crap about the best possible fuel ingredient there is, and that's thorium. Maybe I'll talk about the rest of this video in some other video, but you poor people have had to watch enough of this stuff. Support the Thorium Energy Alliance. We need your help. We need your help doing stuff like this, refuting bad information. So give us a shekel, buy a t-shirt, send us a love note. And like I said, I really appreciate what Mr. Hayes does with a lot of his other videos, but this one, give me a ring and give me a call. I'd be happy to talk it through. Maybe we'll give a presentation at ANS winter meeting. All right, take it easy, fellas and ladies.